lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that cause I've been working in the kitchen with the dirt on my hand. God tell me what.
The champ is here!
Yo, Mike check.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Hey, you got some nice flows on here.
Yeah. This DMG people, man. He got, I don't know everybody music by heart, but yeah, these the layouts that he already got up on here. It's some cool brothers, man. Cool brothers.
Man, what happened to Jerome? Did he look like he fell off?
He should be coming back on.
Okay.
He did fall off.
Yeah. I ain't even gonna do it. Let's see. Message group. Hey. Okay. There you go. Oh, see, I was about to do it, man.
Oh, my bad. I'm just trying to make sure that I said
you good.
Yeah, it's like it's either from the freestyle on the board.
I was, not anymore.
35 with the top down, quick to tell a hater they should get like me. Seem like everybody.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's like, if y'all ready, I'm ready, man.
Yeah, I'm ready. Jerome, you ready? I know. Hey, we've been waiting on this for a while, bro.
StreamYard kicked me out randomly. I don't know what that was, Jerome.
Nah, it does that every time I get on StreamYard. It kicks me out randomly.
Oh, okay. Well, if you get kicked off again, bro, you just come back in. I'm gonna let you right back in. You know what I'm saying? But if y'all ready to start this show, man, shout out to the Paradigm Shift TV 314 audience, man. Y'all know we got a good show for y'all today. We got the brother Najidi and the brother Jerome, the Conscious Christian Green, in the building, man. And for the most part, we're about to take y'all through a journey of Jerome, the Conscious Christian Green, going through the conscious community and things like that. Najidi have a set of questions that he's going to ask the brother Jerome, and the brother Jerome will give the answer that he feels is suffice enough to answer the question, man. Me, I'm just here to moderate. I'm just here to host. I'm going to get out y'all way, and I'm going to let y'all do y'all thing. Everybody know me. I go by the name of Nobody. I always trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody, and that is Jesus the Christ. But before we get this show started, Najidi, take about a minute or two, let the people know who you are. Then we're going to go to Jerome, and then we're going to kick this thing off, man. Let's go.
All right, what's going on, everybody? This is GT. People call me GT for short because it's easier to say. I think I have about 20 different names from everybody trying to pronounce that name, from Nagetto, Nagente, Negate. People call me anything, but just call me GT for short. Or if you want to get shorter, just call me G. But basically, I'm just a humble servant of Christ, just wanting to fellowship with my bros and preach the word, and that's pretty much it.
All righty, Jerome Green. You really don't need no introduction, but reintroduce yourself to the platform, bro.
Okay, y'all know me as Jerome, the Conscious Christian Green, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's a pleasure to be back on the show. I haven't been on in a while. And for those who have been here from the beginning, from the very first show that Paradigm Shift TV 314 ever put on a public platform. Y'all remember that I gave my, I pretty much gave my testimony to Pianki, you know what I'm saying? Letting him know, how I started, what inspired me to start, what path I was on ideologically, and ultimately what led me out of that path. Now, I would say that this is an extension of that because this is more of a honing in on how I found out that the information that I was receiving through the Kemetic paradigm was not, actual facts. It was, it was false evidence. I mean, not false evidence, false information. And through the help of apologists like Alfredo, the BK apologist, Matthew Jackson, they call him MJ for short, and last but not least, Berean, you know what I'm saying? I was able to, just get a better understanding of why the information is false, where the information came from, and things of that nature. So yeah, this is pretty much what the show is gonna be about.
All righty. Hey, D New, we see you up there in the chat. Hey, sis, how you doing? Well, say, brothers, I'm going to get out y'all way. I'm going to be popping in and out every now and again. Y'all know I'm going to have a question or two to ask as well. But until then, Nijiti, the show is in your hands, bro. Let's go.
All right. So the first thing that I wanted to start with is with this video. I want to share my screen real quick, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, bro. Show your screen.
All right.
And while the brother Nijiti is pulling his screen up, man, welcome in everybody that's in the chat. Peace to the chat, man. Of course, peace to both of my brothers that's on the platform, man. We got a good show for y'all today. We're going to take y'all into the mind of the brother Jerome, the conscious Christian Green. Hopefully, a lot of y'all people can be edified through this brother's testimony. A lot of us have got sucked out of some stuff that we believe due to a lot of the fake narratives that have come through the conscious community, man. And this testimony right here is a real powerful testimony. Nijiti, your screen is up right now. Go ahead, bro.
All right. So I'm gonna play this video, and we're gonna start with this. Can you hear it?
I can't hear you, bro. Let me see if I got to put your audio on there too.
You said you couldn't hear it?
No, I can't hear it.
Okay.
I don't know why. Let me see.
Let's see.
The audio is on.
All right. Let me try it again. My apologies. I really want to get into this, but I want to start off the right way. Can you hear it?
I can't hear nothing. Can you hear it yourself?
I can hear it.
You can hear it? Okay. I can't hear it. Let me see. Everything is on. Like, I don't know.
All right. Well, let me stop sharing real quick.
Yeah, everything is on. All audio is on. Everything is on.
All right. Well, basically, basically, I think who was that? That was one of I think his name is Dr. Ben Dr. Yosef, if I'm not mistaken, Jerome.
Yeah, that's Doctor Yosef Ben Yakin.
Okay, right. So now y'all gonna have to forgive me because I'm not real familiar with names when it comes to people within the Black conscious community, and I know that Jerome, you are a lot more familiar with some of these people than I am. But I have heard some of the dogma that they put out there, and one of the things that he was stating is that the 10 Commandments came from the 42 laws of Ma'at, which I've always, anytime I heard that, I've always kind of cringed at the idea that somebody would say that, because we don't find any similarities to what they call the 42 laws of Ma'at and the 10 Commandments. But I wanted to start off with that video just to give people an idea of where we was going with the discussion. So, but basically, you know, this interview was an interview. It's done in this interview style type discussion where Jerome and we just plan to really build. And as Jacobus said, you know, I'll be asking Brother Jerome some questions. And depending on what kind of answers I get,
I know about I always tell everybody about somebody who can save everybody.
Roger, that is my bad. My bad. So just a little background on the show. Me and Jerome had originally came up with the idea to talk about why the 42 laws of Ma'at are not from the 10 Commandments, or the 10 Commandments vice versa. But our brother BK over in the Urban Apologetics sector, they had already taken care of that. So we decided that what we was going to do was go ahead and do a interview style discussion, which we're doing now. The questions for the most part, you know, is, were the Hebrews inspired by the Egyptian Book of the Dead? Did the Hebrews formulate the 10 Commandments based off of that? That was the subject matter. And again, like I said, the UA, they've already taken care of that. But our main focus is not only to debunk the claims of what, you know what I'm saying, the conscious community say. What my goals is in this discussion is to shed more light on the Egyptian perspective concerning the Book of the Dead, while at the same time demonstrating and affirming what Brother Jerome has gone through, and focusing on the realization of the truth concerning the matter. So instead of tackling the subject from that angle, as far as like really trying to show that there's no connection between the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the 10 Commandments, I really want to hone in on Jerome's experience, take a few things from what he's experienced or what they taught him, and then focus a little bit more on the actual purpose of the Book of the Dead, which will take us into really you know, how the Egyptians thought about life after death, which I think is a little bit more interesting. So I hope that this is enlightening, and I hope that everybody that's listening is edified. So starting the interview with Jerome, basically this idea that the 10 Commandments came from the 42 laws of Ma'at, this was something This was something new to me when I at first heard it, of almost like 20 something years ago. That's how old this argument is. But you know, at the time of my studies, I had never heard any archaeologists, Egyptologists make any claims whatsoever. This always came from a group of people who called themselves conscious or woke, and usually it was within the Black community. Like I said, the first time I heard this, it was from a guy named Ashra Kwesi. Kwesi. I might be saying this name wrong. Again, I'm not familiar with these people, but I've heard them talk. But I'm sure we'll get into some of the things that he said. And I wanted to play a video with him saying it so that nobody would say that I'm just making things up. But for some reason, I don't know if the audio on my laptop is not working or not. So I'm gonna just skip the video part. But Jerome, this question is for you, my brother. Would you mind telling me first, what was your theological perspective before getting involved with the concepts of the conscious community and leading up to your introduction to this subject and the conscious community? And what I mean is, what was your religious background before you encountered the Black conscious community?
Okay. Well, of course, I was born and raised in Orangeburg, South Carolina. So, you know, that's the Bible Belt, or part of the Bible Belt South, right? So, growing up, you know, I was in church, you know, Bible study, you know, stuff like that. But what I will say is, I can't even in good conscience say that I had a religious background, because I wasn't really a Christian. You know, I went, you know, yeah, I went to church and, you know, had a vague belief in the Bible and, you know, Jesus and stuff like that. But I didn't have a working understanding of the Bible or Jesus or a theology or theological framework of the God of the Bible. So, you know, that was where I was before I got introduced to the conscious community, and more specifically the Kemetic variation of the conscious community. I didn't necessarily have a solid theological framework to really base anything off of.
Okay, so basically, uh, you attended church, but pretty much you wasn't like really into church. You were just going.
Yeah, I mean, I was I was kind of off and on. You know, I was off and on. Like you know what I'm saying? I would go sometimes, but then, you know, I was out doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? And hanging in places I wasn't supposed to be hanging. You know, so it wasn't like I was all vested in, you know, in the church or the Bible. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much where I was at, man. It wasn't no, you know, I wasn't really on my square like that. You know, so.
Okay. Okay. Uh, so now I know what's his name? Queasy. What could you tell me something about Ashra Queasy? Now I've seen a lot of people in the Black community bring him up, and they reference a lot of his videos. And I've seen in his videos where he's actually stated that the Ten Commandments came from I'm sorry. Anyways, where he stated that the 10 Commandments came from the 42 laws of Ma'at. What was your encounter with that? Did you have any encounters with him, or did you study under him?
Okay, so with Ashraf Kwesi, he wasn't the one who initially introduced me to what's called Afrocentrism. That was Malefe Kete Asante in his book called The Afrocentric Idea. And I think it was the revised version that I had read, but it did introduce me to that paradigm. Now, what Ashraf Kwesi introduced me to was Kemetic spirituality. And how I found out about Kemetic spirituality is it was through the internet, because this is way back in like 2013, I think, 2013, 2014 is when I got introduced to Kemetic spirituality, because after I had got introduced to the idea of Afrocentric thought, I did consult my local library, but they didn't have any books besides the one I had already gotten and read. They didn't have any books on Afrocentrism and that whole paradigm. So I had to resort to the internet, specifically YouTube, and that's when I ran across Ashraf Kwesi. And so Ashraf Kwesi not only introduced me to the idea of Kemetic spirituality and the idea that this was something that as a Black person I could lay claim to, but he also introduced me to the idea that both Christianity and the Bible were pretty much European constructs. So in that vein is where, because I kept watching his videos and things like that. So one of the first arguments or talking points that I got from him was that the Genesis account was stolen from the Kemetic creation account. And so as I kept watching, eventually I got to where he espoused this idea that the 10 Commandments were taken from the 42 laws of Ma'at. And so not only did I see it in his video, I actually saw it on Facebook through memes and stuff like that, because I had joined Afrocentric groups and they were pretty much spouting the same thing through memes and stuff like that. So after all of that, and I mean, back then I didn't have the wherewithal to kind of like fact check what was being said. I didn't have the wherewithal to actually go back and do a compare and contrast, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, these people, these Europeans came into Kemet and took these concepts and ideas, and they pretty much manipulated or remade them, and that's how you get Christianity in the Bible. That was my whole train of thought, based on videos by Ashraf Kwesi up until that point. So when he first introduced me to that idea, of course it was surprising, but at the same time, I'm like, man, this dude got to know what he's talking about, because he spoke so matter of factly, and he was saying that he had done about 40 years of field research, and that his teacher was Dr. Yosef Ben Yakin. And so I'm thinking all this stuff is African and African centered. So like that's where my mind was at that point.
Okay. All right. So now just looking back on what you were saying, so I guess one of the concepts was, so they believe that the children of Israel or the Hebrews took from Egypt some parts of their religion and then decided to create what we read in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Is that what I'm picking up?
Oh, nah. Actually, they believe that it was Europeans who came into Kemet and stole these concepts and ideas, and then they they put these ideas and concepts into the Bible, and that's how you get the Bible. That's how you get Christianity, stuff like that. So I never remember hearing Ash Raquezi actually mention. The only thing I ever heard him mention about the children of Israel is that they never existed.
Okay, that makes sense now that I'm thinking about it. In one sense, I've heard some people, even scholars, where they say that there was no children of Israel; they were actually Canaanites. That's what I've heard. The second thing I've heard is that yes, like you said, they say it was the Greeks who came into Egypt, took what they had, and then sometime in the first century AD, you had people like Titus of the Roman Empire and his father who decided to create the so-called Jesus myth in order to, I guess, create what you would call a some type of political upheaval or something. So that's another theory that I've heard.
Yeah, and then I mean another one that I had heard, or even I had read. Matter of fact, I had read this. I read this in a book called Echoes from the Old Dark Land. If I remember correctly, it was by Dr. Charles Finch III, and I think in his book he said that there were no Israelites. Those were the Hyksos people that were enslaved in Egypt, and there were never any Israelites enslaved in Egypt. That story was made up and all that type of stuff. So yeah, that was another one that I heard. Peace to BK. What's up, bro?
Peace. Hey, so that whole little theory about the Hyksos, that's very interesting. If anybody has been, chatting with me for a while, a lot of people know that I always refer to what is called a revised chronology for Egypt, which was provided by David Rowe. So all I did was I took what he presented, and what I decided to do was create a timeline with it. And for me, and I'm gonna show it to you, Jacobus. My bad. Nobody. I'm gonna share my screen again. I'm gonna pull this up real quick.
All right, go ahead, bro.
Let's see. I know I ain't got no personal files on here. Here it is. This is the conventional. I'm gonna just pull up mine. Let me know if you can see it or not. Can you see it? Can you see it?
No, I'm waiting for the share first. You got to share to your screen first, and then I can pull it up.
Okay. Hold on. I thought I shared it. Where is it at? Okay. Let me know.
I got you.
All right. Can you see this?
Yeah, it's on the screen. Go ahead.
All right. Now on this revised timeline, what they say about the Hyksos, this is where I have the Hyksos coming in on a date of 1290 BC. But I'm gonna pull up the conventional because I just want to point this out only because he brought up the Hyksos and try to explain why people think the way that they do when it comes to the history, when it comes to Israel. Now, this, what y'all looking at right here, is the conventional timeline to which all scholars, Egyptologists, this is what they're using. This is the conventional timeline. When you look down at, let's say, we know in between 1759 BC and 1525 BC, where you see the second intermediate, and I forgot y'all can see this. So right here, you see where the cursor is at? Y'all still there? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. All right. The reason I'm showing that, hold on. Pull it back up. Conventional. The reason I'm showing this to you is because, so when somebody say that, oh, it wasn't the children of Israel, it was the Canaanites, or the Israelites weren't around at that time or anything like that. When you look at the second intermediate period, 1759 BC, and the New Kingdom, 1525 BC, by this time, the children of Israel hadn't even made it out of Egypt yet. So when we looking at certain things like the Hyksos came in actually between the New Kingdom, well, between the second intermediate period and the New Kingdom. But if you look over here at Israel's history, all the way down to right here, supposedly they were supposed to be in the wilderness at this point in time at 1640 BC. Well, they were, but the problem is we have the Hyksos who were around in between the second intermediate period and the New Kingdom. And so people try to equate the time when Amos the first kicked out the children of, not the children, but the Hyksos. They say, oh, well, that was the Exodus. That's what they would say. But the main point I was getting to is just there's a lot of red flags when it comes to the dating system. And so when we hear people like Queasy, even people like Ray Hagins and Sarnetta and all of them, when they say these things, and scholars as well, when they say these things, it's mainly based off of a bad chronology that the conventional timeline uses, because according to those dates, you won't see any children of Israel in the Levant during specific times. But on that, and I'll pull it up later, but on the new, and I'm gonna stop sharing this. On the revised timeline, what you would see is that they all concur. But I'll get into that a little later. But I just wanted to bring that up. What else we was talking about? There's another thing that we should understand is that when we look at the biblical history and we got the children of Israel in Egypt, according to some biblical scholars, they were there for 430 years. I believe they were there for at least 215 years, based off of what Paul says. But the main point here is that any group of people who migrate into an area, for example, like the Mexicans who come from Mexico and they come to America, what happens is that all of a sudden they start eating McDonald's, they start eating Popeyes. Now all of a sudden they starting to listen to hip hop or participate in certain American traditions. Why? Because they have become Americanized. This was the same type of situation it was for the children of Israel when they got into Egypt. They became Egyptianized. But the question is, did they take on any of the religious aspects of Egypt? That I would say no. But to move but to move on to my second question to you, Jerome. So I have a brother who really studies the occult, and there have been times when I'm having these Bible studies and or attempting to have Bible studies. Is we get into a long, drawn out discussion about certain philosophies, and when we get into those areas, I don't get lost, but uh, it's like I get well, actually I do get lost because he start throwing out all these names and all these terms out, like the Hegelian dialectic or certain words like mysticism, New Age philosophies. Years back, years back, I couldn't grasp hold of the understanding of all of what it means, and still today, I still get a little confused, but uh I can't remember all of the names that he called out or the originators of some of these new age philosophies. But what I found out is that there is some type of connection between the conscious community, where people actually are linked to particular new age philosophies. Are you able to go into those type of details in regards to the Black conscious communities? I guess you would call it a worldview.
Well, I'll give you an answer based on what I was able to discover via um, some wisdom from Brother Berean and what I was able to gather later from I would say, expertise of Brother Alfredo with making those connections, right? So I can remember just like yesterday where I was I had by this point, mind you, I had kind of backed away from comedic spirituality altogether because I kind of, I kept getting red flags and stuff like that, which I won't go into just not to prolong the show. But at that point, I had backed away from it. Now, I didn't just, go running back to the church and the Bible and stuff like that. I still, was kind of like stuck on the fence about religion, period. But I remember watching Brother Berean, and Brother Berean was somebody that I had watched before, and this was when I was in the conscious community. But I watched this video. I think it probably was a 5 or 6 minute video about the Osiris Jesus connection, and he was dropping facts. But at that point I didn't think he knew what he was talking about. I was like, man, this dude don't know what he's talking about. He's just trying to save face because our people leaving the church and leaving that religion. So I don't even think I watched the whole video, but you know how the internet algorithm is set up. It's like once you watch a video, they're gonna have, they're gonna bring that same channel up as a suggestion. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember going back and watching another one of his videos, and in that video, he stressed something that was very important. He stressed the fact that it's imperative to cite sources, right? So what he did was he said, if you have this book, this book, this book, he was listing off books, right? And I had a few of the books that he listed off. He said, what I want you to do is I want you to go into the back of the book where the reference section is, and I want you to look up these names. He started listing off Jerome Massey. He started listing off Kersey Graves, James Breasted, Manly P. Hall, Madame Blavatsky, I think Alvin Kuhn, William Churchward, Albert Churchward, and it's a bunch of others, right? And so I'm looking in the back of these books that I have. The first one I looked into was the African Origins of Major Western Religions by Dr. Ben, right? And so I'm looking and I'm seeing these names, right? And I'm highlighting these names. So after I finish watching the video, I do a simple Google search, looking up these names, and I'm finding out that, of course, these are Europeans, which kind of undermine the whole idea that the Afrocentric type,
So it's like dead. It's like dead on arrival.
Yeah, because it's like the information and these talking points that I had been believing for a couple of years at this point, I'm finding out that these talking points are really coming from Europeans and they're not actually coming from Africans. It's just that some of us took those things and kind of like ran with them, and so it's like, so once I started looking up these individuals, and I find out that Blavatsky was a Luciferian. I think Gerald Massey. You know what I'm saying? Like Gerald Massey was. I think he was an occultist too.
He was.
Manly P. Hall was a part of the. I think he was a Mason. I don't know if he was an official Freemason, but I know he kind of dabbed into that school of thought too. So it's like, not only are these people European, but these people are a part of the occult in some way, shape, or form. So it's like, for me, I kind of had to humble myself, like, man, like all this time I had been believing that this stuff was like African, and I'm getting African centered, and I'm shedding this Eurocentric mindset and I'm replacing it with an Afrocentric one, right? But all in all, bro, I had gotten duped. So I just had to realize that, and I had to kind of like come to terms with the fact that that was the case, because that's what it was. There was no need to really get angry or anything like that. I just had to humble myself and realize, okay, this ain't what I thought it was,
DMG said, "Wow, cameras ain't on."
This man been telling me for like 3 years to cut my camera on.
What's up, DMG?
See, I don't got the setup like that, so I can't just cut my camera on like that.
Yeah, it's cool.
I got the desk. I just don't got the other stuff, man. I'm working on it.
Yeah, look, just look at my humble bookshelf. I had a lot of books, man, but I lost them in the tornado. I think it was 2018 to 2017.
Oh man,
what's up, fam? You on mute?
What up?
What up?
Yeah. Back, come show your beautiful face. Let the people see your beautiful face. Come here. Hey, she had to take the bonnet off, y'all.
No. We're not. Give me up.
Come say hello to me. She acting shy. Anyways, you go back and cook. Hey, but Jerome, to what you were saying, I think. Well, from what you was explaining or describing, I looked at it like this. You have these Europeans, right, reinventing the Egyptian religion and passing it off as if it was original, but they were mixing it with occult practices and occult beliefs that points right back to Luciferianism. One of the things that I honestly believe is that around, if you look at the time frame, you have a lot of components that added to the confusion when it comes to Egyptian religion and history. Remember the hieroglyphs during the time of Madame Blavatsky. I forgot the other guy's name. When all these German philosophers was coming out with their occult practices and Kemet and Egypt mysticism, I feel like it was this phenomenon that we usually refer to. I think I heard Craig use it or somebody else, and that is the Egyptomania phenomenon, where knowledge about the history of Egypt was just coming out. the translations of the hieroglyphs had just been formulated. I think it was like the mid 1800s, thanks to Napoleon, who went over to Egypt for the war over there, found the Rosetta Stone. Then he asked your boy Sean Polion to translate what he saw, and was able to the hieroglyphs based off of the Rosetta Stone. And as those translations was coming out, you had people like Madame Blavatsky, who was Charles Taze Russell, who else? A couple of other occultists who were taking the new information and creating doctrines off of it. And it's so funny because years later, when the technology and a better understanding of the Egyptian hieroglyphs was coming into fruition, it's like a lot of the things that we hear Manly P. Hall say, or there's another Luciferian that y'all probably don't know about, whose name is Albert Pike. Albert Pike was a 33rd degree Freemason. Oh, yeah. And what Albert Pike did, I think in his book Morals and Dogma, he states that the pyramids were not built for to be used as a tomb. And so when I hear people say, "Oh, the pyramids are not really tombs; they're really power plants or electrical power plants for free Wi-Fi and all this other stuff," I know where they get that from. They get that from people like Albert Pike, because Albert Pike says that the initiates, they used the pyramids to do their initiations, which is probably true. But the original intent of the pyramids was basically for it were tombs. That's what they were. They were tombs. So it's like the German philosophy versus the actual history of Egypt clashes. And based off of your experience, it seems like that's what you encountered.
Yeah, that I mean, it was more so the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the irony in the whole Afrocentric approach to Kemet, because like you alluded to earlier, these Afrocentric teachers are literally getting their interpretation of the symbolism, the spiritual tradition, the theology, and a host of other things from they're looking through the lens of Europeans, right? And so it's like, it's like you're not. How could you call it Afrocentric when you're using a European interpretation? You know what I'm saying? So it's like that whole idea kind of turns on its head once you kind of dig and you find out, just like you said about Albert Pike and how he I guess he interpreted or maybe even made up this idea that
hey Jerome, your phone is breaking up. Your phone is breaking up pretty bad, bro.
Dang. Is it better now?
You was in and then you was out again. Let me get a mic check.
You sound good, bro. You sound good. What's up? I can hear both of y'all. Both of y'all sound good.
Okay. Well, maybe it's me then, because I can't.
What? You can't hear Jerome? Jerome, say something real quick.
Yo, yo, yo.
All right, I can hear Jerome clear. Nigiri, where you at? Say something real quick.
Oh, I guess
Okay.
he gonna come
Yeah,
back in.
he dropped out, came back in. I got him right here. I got him. He back in. All right, Nigiri, say something, bro. Take yourself off mute.
Must be muted.
Something.
There you Baby, he said something too. There you go, bro. Go ahead. Go ahead. You good.
All right, go ahead, Jerome. I couldn't hear you at first, but go ahead.
Okay. So what I was saying was the idea that the information coming from these master teachers like Ashra Kwesi, Dr. Ben, John Henry Clark, Anthony Browder, Muwata Ashby, and others in that school of thought, it kind of turns on its head when you figure out that the information and the interpretation is actually coming from Europeans. It's like they're viewing Kemet through a European lens and not an African lens.
My bad. Hermetic said, he said, well, Nerdy Brew said, Hermetic, I can't even see what he said. Hermetic philosophies, Hermetic principles. What are the Hermetic principles? Is what I always ask. Like, is it the same as the Egyptian principles of antiquity, or is it something modern, like taking a deity or the deities and looking at the deities as concepts or constructs of everyday life, or did the Egyptians really look at these deities and believe that they were real deities, like real gods? So if somebody tells me that the Hermetic principle, when the Egyptians looked at the gods of Egypt, but they didn't see them as gods, I already know that's not true. And I think that's part of the whole conscious community concept, is to take what the Egyptians originally had and reinvent it, pretty much. You got
Yeah,
anything?
I think what yeah, I mean I can add a little bit to that because I know that there's such a thing called uh, corpus hermeticism, and I think that might be what the I think it's called the seven. I think it's the seven hermetic principles. I forgot the actual number, but I think that's what the hermetic principles is based around. Um, and if I remember correctly, I do think it's steeped in like New Age thought. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think I'm trying to jog my memory with that. But that's all I can give for now. But when he said something about the Hermetic principles, the first thing that came up was corpus Hermeticism, and thing, that's pretty much what I can give on that.
Okay. Somebody says Afrocentric ideas were introduced. Again, Afrocentric or Afrocentrality is one thing, but when we are reinventing the wheel, that's something completely different. And again, when somebody say Afrocentric ideas were introduced, I need specifics for me, because there are so many different cultures in Africa, so many different languages. Like, which one are we picking? Like, which one are you choosing? And I'm not even the one to say that something like that is wrong. I'm just Like, I don't like. I like specifics. I'll say that. So I just want somebody to be specific about which Afrocentric idea that they wanting to introduce. Jacobus, I'm sorry, nobody. Do you have anything you want to say?
Oh man, I'm just listening in. When I feel like I have something to say, I jump in. I got a big mouth.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah.
if you do want me to say something, though, I will say the way you started off the conversation with Jerome Green, me and Jerome Green's story is a little similar. The only thing is I came across Dr. Ray Hagen, and at that same time, and I didn't know a lot about church history or biblical history at that time. I mean, I thought I was a Christian. I went to church. I was a Christian because my family was Christians, but I really didn't know a lot about Christianity. I didn't know a lot about the Bible. I didn't know a lot about its history. And when I ran across Dr. Ray Higgins, and he pretty much shook my foundation, and I would really have to thank him to a certain extent because he actually made me go research, go look up the stuff that I do know now. And that was maybe, 11 years ago, maybe 10, 11 years ago. And now the stuff that I know now, me giving my life to Christ on my own merit and not just being a Christian because there was something that I grew up in the culture or because something that my family was. I actually got to read the Bible for myself, go get a understanding, go get a hermeneutics from experts and people who knew more than what I knew. And by doing that, I was able to see that those people in the conscious community, like Dr. Ray Higgins, they were just flat out liars, and it took a minute. It didn't take that long, but it took a minute because I had to go do the research and go actually, look into these studies and pull the stuff that people were saying up for myself. And once I did that, I came to the same conclusion that Jerome said, it don't matter if you're black, no matter if you're white. When it comes to the message of God, in the Bible, in the Word of God, it's for everybody. So even though the Bible is not the white man's religion, even if it was the white man's religion, it don't matter. It's funny how nobody argues over who discovered that 1+1 = 2. Because even if a white man came up with it, a black man, a Chinese man, or whatever color man, we all can agree that 1+1 does equals 2, and you're not following another culture's understanding of religion because you agree with the truth. And when we apply that to the Bible or anything else, I think that especially here in America, because you don't see it a lot in other countries, but in America, the emphasis on black versus white is so high that it does mess with people's mind to the point to where they would even walk away from Christ because they would put skin color over understanding, over truth, and over logic, man. So if nothing else, that right there, me and Jerome definitely got in common. That's why he my bro. That's why when I made my show, he was the first person I could think of to become my co-host because it is deep, and this brother can go way deeper than I can go into the conscious community. I know some of the same names. I know some of the same understandings, the doctrines, the teachings, and all that come from the conscious community. But I never myself, I never went as far into the conscious community as he did. So he was even the primary source for a person like me to pick his brain, see what he's talking about, get his understanding of stuff, and just add that to my repertoire, man. So, stuff like that, bro.
Roger that. Roger that. We can go ahead and move on, brother Jerome. But first, hey, look, I don't know, and I'm gonna do this. I don't know if y'all got this or not. Y'all need to get that. My wife loves the poems. It's my favorite poet, DMG. All right. Jerome, anything else before we move on?
Nah, we can go ahead and move on.
Okay. All right. So basically, on this part, after how did you come to the realization of the truth? And when you came to the realization of the truth, uh, what was your reactions? How did you feel? What was your reactions, if anything?
Okay, so I'm gonna try not to be long-winded with the answer, but upon, because I mentioned how I was pretty much reintroduced to Brother Berean and his videos, right? So once I got that, the whole conscious community, that information, all that stuff was like dubious and things of that nature. I didn't just, like I said, I didn't automatically come back to the Bible. I still had my reservations because I'm like, okay, so I know that the Kemetic stuff is pretty much garbage. But can I truly even consider the idea of becoming a Christian as a black man or a man of African descent? So, upon further viewing of Brother Berean's videos and things like that, he started to parse out the idea of the history of Christianity in Africa and how, the earliest African nation to embrace Christianity was Ethiopia, and how it went into Egypt with the Coptic Christians, which, by the way, they and I'm pretty sure you know this. I'm just saying this for the audience, but they helped to translate the Rosetta Stone along with Francis Champollion. So of course, he didn't do it by himself. He had help from the Coptic Christians in that endeavor. So, but so when I started finding out that it really essentially was not a white man's religion, and that basically black and brown people were already Christian and had heard the gospel long before the Portuguese reached the shores of West Africa in the 16th century. I was like, man, that kind of, in a way, it blew my mind because of course, I had never been exposed to that information. So I started doing more research, and I ended up getting this book called How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind by Thomas C. Oden. And upon reading that book, it lays out how Africans contributed heavily to the development of the faith tradition that we call Christianity. And so once I came to that realization, I was like, man, I really can actually embrace this. And if I want to continue to be Afrocentric, because Afrocentric is not a bad thing in and of itself, it's just that I was exposed to an extreme version of Afrocentrism with, the whole romanticizing Africa and making Kemet seem like it was this utopia, just stuff like that. So once I realized that I could embrace, African culture and still be a Christian, it's like, okay, nothing really is stopping me from doing it. You know what I'm saying? So I gave my life to Christ in 2018. And upon doing that, I
Amen.
started to, yes, sir, amen. But upon doing that, I started to really read the Bible for myself. And upon doing that, and getting a better understanding of the scriptures, I started to see more and more how nearly, if not everything I was told by the conscious community in regards to certain scriptures was a flat out lie. You know what I'm saying? And so, but the mistake I made though is what I started to do is I started to really challenge the remaining conscious community friends that I had on Facebook, because I had hundreds of conscious community friends of different variations. Some of them were more, some were 5%ers, some were Kemetic. it was a whole host of them. And what's funny though is the day that I made that announcement that I had given my life to Christ, you should have seen the backlash I got from that community of people. And I mean, it didn't really affect me. It just helped me to see that those people weren't really pro-black like they said they were.
Yeah, sound familiar, don't it?
But man, listen, I it's like every time I see it, I'm like, okay, I already know them. They not really pro-black. You know what I'm saying? They got a underlying agenda as to why they even embrace certain ideologies. It's not really for them to quote unquote wake black people up or anything like that. It's ulterior motive. So yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's like what I made the mistake of doing though is I would challenge those who remain on my friends list, and of course I would get blocked. You know, they would go on these emotional rants and all this type of stuff, and I'm just trying to show them that a lot of that stuff, because they didn't know any better, so they were still posting stuff like the Trinity originated in Kemet, and the Bible stole from it, and still on that tip. So I'm like, nah, this ain't that, bro. That like it's and it's not only a bad argument. This is who the argument came from, and this is a European. So what are you really gonna do with that? This ain't an argument that Ash Raquezi or a what's his name? He wrote the book Christianity Before Christ. I forgot his name. It'll come to me, but they were still going off of those works, and so you had to kind of walk them down the garden path, as Brother Trey would say, and show them that this ain't some people I could walk them down the garden path, and some of them they would either unfriend me or block me or both. So
yeah, shout out to the ones.
Real
Shout
quick,
out to the ones. And what?
Real quick, we got DMZ, of course, in the building, and he got a request, Jerome. He said, "Talk about us meeting. Your first thoughts and how our friendship evolved into you coming on the platform." He want to hear you speak on that, if you will.
Oh
yeah, I was about to do that. Nobody.
My bad, bro. I ain't mean to step on your toes.
You got it.
But yeah, I got the utmost respect for DNG, and I'm gonna tell y'all why, right? I remember when I met him in Vocab's chat, right? And he was talking this talk in the chat, because he was repping Kemet, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't a surprise, but it was like, okay, so I think what he did was he gave me his information on Facebook, and I ended up adding him to this. Not only did I add him to the Christians versus Conscious community group, we had a back chat, and it wasn't a whole lot of us in the back chat at that time. It probably was like literally a handful of us. But I remember it was me, it was Brother Antoine, and it was him on the phone, right? So one thing he said that stood out to me was that he had, he still had respect for the black church. And once he said that, I was like, oh, okay, so he different. Like, he not one of them cats that's gonna, disrespect or try to attack the black church, because he sees the significance that the black church has played in the social uplift and progression of our people. So I was like, okay, cool. Now, intellectually, we would of course we would have sparring matches. He would come with some information, and we'd go back and forth with it. And sometimes I would come with information, and we go back and forth with it. But it wasn't never nothing personal. You know what I'm saying? It was all just based on the information, and we kept it at that. But as time progressed, we started to get closer. You know what I'm saying? And me, him, and Antoine started having more like personal discussions outside of the different ideologies and stuff like that. So we developed a real friendship, the three of us. You know what I'm saying? And I believe it was Brother Antoine that because DMG had pitched the idea of doing a show, creating Paradigm Shift TV 314, and I don't even think he had a name for it at that particular time, but Brother Antoine was first in like pushing him to go ahead and do it. You know what I'm saying? I was like, yeah, go ahead and do it, man. You know that, because the way he laid it out, it was like it was the layout was, it was cool. Like we come on, we parse out information. You know what I'm saying? Maybe even debate. But it was more so about having discussions and stuff like that. And me and Brother Antoine was down, so um, so that's between him pitching his idea and following through with it, and his wife actually supplying the equipment, that's how it came to fruition. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, man, we've been tight ever since, man. You know what I'm saying? It's been a beautiful relationship, man. And like when he came to Christ, you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie, like and I'm not the only one, but I wasn't even surprised when he did it. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew that he was searching for truth. You know what I'm saying? And so the truth is gonna lead you back to one place. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it went, man. And we've been rocking ever since. Oh, and another thing I want to bring up. You know how it is, like, cause DMG, he older than me and Antoine, but anytime
he older than me too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So like it's like anytime a cat will call themselves trying to talk slick to either me or Antoine, you know what I'm saying? DMG would step in and be like, nah, it ain't, that ain't gonna fly. You know what I'm saying? I can remember, I had ticked off, well, I ain't gonna say his name, but I had ticked off one of the conscious folks. And he started to curse and, you know what I'm saying, call me out my name or whatever. And DMG, he interjected immediately. He was like, look, like, you ain't gonna talk to this brother like that. This brother ain't disrespect you. You're not gonna disrespect him. You know what I'm saying? That's just how it's gonna be. And so, you know what I'm saying? He laid down the law, and that's just what shows the character that he has. You know what I'm saying? And he wasn't even, the thing about it is he wasn't even a Christian at that time. He just, his
was just
compass,
undercover.
you know what I'm saying?
He was undercover.
Maybe I don't want to speak for him, but I guess he don't like when guys, you know what I'm saying, call themselves trying to bully or trying to disrespect other black brothers. And so anytime that took place, and DMG was present, he was gonna handle it. So yeah.
So how and I will follow up by saying, you know what I'm saying, DMG, I'd rather call him Pianki because that's how I met him, as Pianki. And I know about the 25th, 24th, 25th, 26th dynasty periods of Egypt, and that's where you would find the majority of your Nubian pharaohs. And so I understood why he chose that name, and I respected that. And when you go and read the history on Pianki, very strong pharaoh of Egypt. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was also an ally of the southern kingdom of Judah. But in any case, yeah, I 100% agree with you as far as DMG is concerned. Real good brother. I appreciate the fact that he let me come on to this platform and spew out this information about the Bible, Egypt, and in other topics and participate. So, shout out to DMG, aka Pianki. Appreciate it. I know we're getting into the hour, but what I wanted to ask maybe a few other questions or make a few other statements. As far as the 42 so-called laws of Ma'at are concerned, how did you deal with that information when you came to the realization of the truth? And truth is always going to lead you back to Jesus. Amen. Pastor Trey. I don't know why he trying to run from that too.
Okay. Let me see. That actually required help from Nefertiti, may she rest in Christ, BK Apologist, and MJ Matthew Jackson. Now, I think the first person that I knew that had addressed that idea was Nefertiti, and she pointed out plain and simple that there were, I believe, 4 commandments within the 10 commandments that you don't even find in the 42 so-called laws of Ma'at, right? Which is true. And the other 6 are basically predicated on moral principles of how to interact with other people. Now, that makes sense because universally you had, well, let's just keep it in the ancient Near East, right? In that area, you had like law. I mean, you had codes of conduct and moral laws in every nation of people surrounding Israel. Like you had the Hammurabi Code. You had and you know what I'm saying, you just had other codes of conduct and moral laws that people live by or were supposed to live by. Now, I would say the only difference in those moral laws and the moral laws that were given to Moses at Mount Sinai was its metaphysical basis. You know what I'm saying? And so there's that, and then like when you get into what those 42 quote unquote laws actually are, then you start to see a fundamental difference, and that's where and I learned that from Alfredo, BK Apologist, and Matthew Jackson.
Gotcha. So what I figured out in listening to you and other people on this subject concerning the 42 laws of Ma'at, first of all, I think you would agree with me. Ain't no such thing as 42 laws, right? Ain't no such thing as 42 laws of Ma'at. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is accurate. I was actually going back and forth with a brother yesterday about this very subject, about is there such thing as 42 laws of Ma'at, and I tried to stress to him that no, there is no 42 laws of Ma'at. Now you do have the 7 principles of Ma'at, which are truth, justice, reciprocity, and the other principles. I can't name them off the top of my head, but you have those, yes, but you don't necessarily have 42 specific laws that the people were supposed to live by within the Kemetic framework.
Okay. So I'm gonna read something here, and we might can end it within the next 5 or 10 minutes. But what I wanted to touch on based upon all of this was that claim. I did want to touch on that just a little bit, and to see if there was any possibility of the children of Israel somehow plagiarizing, copying these 42 so-called laws of Ma'at that we just established is not really a thing. I'm like you, yeah. I understand that not the children, but the ancient Egyptians, they had some kind of moral code, some type of moral law, but I don't think it was the 42 laws of Ma'at. I do believe that observing their aspects within the text of the Book of the Dead, that they were very concerned about moral principles, because as BK apologists and all them pointed out, I was going to play the video, but again, I don't know what's going on with my laptop, but go to their channel, check out, did the 42 laws of Ma'at come from, did the 10 commandments come from the 42 laws of Ma'at? And within it, they go into details about how the priest, Annie, who was an Egyptian vizier or priest or one of them, in his tomb, the whole book of the Dead is spelled out on the walls. The funny thing about it is that when the heart has to be weighed on the scales of justice or the scales of Ma'at, weighed against the feather of Ma'at, they had to create a spell to keep the heart from, as they said, ratting on the person. So here we have Annie, who I think this is the tomb belonged to. He had to create a spell, or the priest had to create a spell to basically have his heart be on the hush. And I that made me think, like, what I'm saying, about what the Bible says. It's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but it's what comes out of his mouth, because what comes out of his mouth is what defiles him, because it comes out of his heart. So it's something about the heart that the Egyptians already knew. Hey, if I don't put a spell on this, then I might not make it to the other side. But let me read this real quick. This is from the World History Encyclopedia, Old Kingdom of Egypt, definition by Joshua J. Mark. This is published 26 September 2016. It's okay. Here you go. My wife's phone was ringing. Well, let me read this for you real quick. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because it all has to do, I love timelines. I love chronology. So looking at the Old Kingdom, it says here, originated during the Old Kingdom as pyramid texts and was only for the king. So these so-called 42 laws that the conscious community says that all of the Egyptians had, that's not true. Because at first, it was only meant for the king. Let me continue. Now, the Old Kingdom of Egypt, which is dated 2613 to 2181 BCE, is also known as the Age of the Pyramids, or Age of the Pyramid Builders, as it includes the great fourth dynasty when King Sneferu perfected the art of pyramid building, and the pyramids of Giza was constructed under the kings Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. The historical records of this period, the 4th to the 6th dynastic time of Egypt, are scarce, and historians regard the history of the era as literally written in stone and largely architecturally, in that and through the monuments and their inscriptions that scholars have been able to construct a history. The pyramids themselves the pyramids themselves relay scant information on their builders, but the mortuary temples built nearby and the steles which accompanied them provide the names of kings and other important information. Further inscriptions in stone found elsewhere from the time record various events and the dates on which they occurred. Finally, the tomb of the last king of the fifth dynasty, Unas, is spelled Unas, Unis, provide the first pyramid text uh, in elaborate paintings, so far and so forth. But I'm gonna skip down. It says here, Unas was the first king of Egypt to have the interior of his tomb painted and marked with inscriptions which have come to be known as the pyramid text. So historically, one, there was no Book of the Dead during the fourth, fifth, or sixth dynastic period. So there's no real continuity as far as like with the Ten Commandments are concerned. They don't even come close. Also, what we have here again in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dynasty is the first pyramid text. But what about the first dynasty? What about Narmer? What about Scorpion? What about what's his name? Oh, the King Aha. What about these first and early kings who didn't have anything written on their walls or any pyramid text? So for me, this right here is telling me that this whole idea that the Egyptians had some type of book walking around quoting laws like they were the Ten Commandments is false. You have anything to say on that? Any response? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll give a little commentary on how that idea doesn't necessarily coincide with reality, because once you understand that these were actually, like you laid out, post-mortem spells to be recited by the person who was deceased, you can't really make a concatenation between that and the Ten Commandments, because they're not based on the same thing. The settings are not the same. It's not based on the same thing. And like you laid out, I mean, if there's a way, or if there's a spell to get around the actual judgment that you deserve when your heart is weighed against a feather, then there's some delusiveness involved as well. So again, like trying to compare and contrast, we're trying to create a connection between the Ten Commandments and the 42 negative confessions it's not gonna pan out well for whoever's trying to argue that. You know what I'm saying? So that's it on my part.
Okay. Let's see if it was something else that I had to. I did. There was one thing that was very interesting for me. You may have heard it before, but in regards to the building of the pyramids, and we can end it after this, or take questions, or whatever. But thinking about the first pyramids and when they were built, and like I told y'all, I hold to a different, a revised chronology, and this chronology has really helped me in regards to my own research, because you know a lot of times when you know we might watch videos or we might read something and that's it. You know what I'm saying? We'll put the book down, we'll turn the TV off or the recorder off, and then we'll go about. And the only thing that we will have is what that author or person has said. But when you go and do the research, there's much more of, I guess, a pleasure and appreciation for the subject once you come to the realization of the truth. Because the reason why I bring that up is because thinking about when the first pyramid text was written. The first pyramid text was written between the 4th and the 6th dynastic period of Egypt. Well, it's very interesting. One, I hear people say, or unbelievers, they say, "Oh, well, I don't know Hebrews. There were no Hebrews in Egypt. They didn't build the pyramids and things of that nature." It's funny because the Giza pyramids, no, the Hebrews didn't build, but there are other pyramids that were made not out of stone, but out of mud brick, and the mud brick had evidence of having straw in it. Those were the ones that they built, and they came during the Middle Kingdom. But going back to the 4th, 5th, and 6th dynastic period, Josephus, and I have his book up here. Yeah, sorry. Josephus, just to show y'all I read. Josephus states that the Egyptians at one point in time were having a hard time building pyramids. And it wasn't until Abraham came down into Egypt, if you recall, when he had that encounter with the Pharaoh who took Sarah, Josephus states that during his time in Egypt, he brought with him arithmetic and astronomy. And only after then did the Egyptians begin to build the correct or have the right mathematics to build the pyramids in the correct way. And some evidence of that I take as evidence is that when we look back at Djoser and his pyramid builder Imhotep, who built what I would call a step pyramid. And a step pyramid looks so familiar. It looks like a ziggurat. And Abraham is said to have come from the land of the Chaldeans, which is modern day Iraq. And that area during that time, and even further on during the days of Babylon, were known for astronomy. But it's interesting that Abraham ends up on the timeline that I follow in Egypt between the 4th, 5th, and 6th dynasties, passes on some mathematical knowledge to the Egyptians, and then we start to see the construction of these type of pyramids. But again, as far as the pyramid text is concerned, this would be the first or prototype of what eventually became the Book of the Dead. But the Book of the Dead was not, we didn't see the Book of the Dead until like the late Middle Kingdom of Egypt, or right around the new Kingdom period. And the one that you always see the most with Annie, the Book of the Dead that you always see the most of, that's from Annie. I think he was a priest or a scribe, a priest, or a vizier. I can't remember. But you didn't see those elaborate tomb writings on the first dynasty or on the second. On the second, the Middle Kingdom is when you started to see the coffin text. So they go from pyramid text, then to the coffin text of the Middle Kingdom, and then into the third, into the New Kingdom. That's when you start getting like the a full, I guess you would call a full book of the dead. Where is the children of Israel doing all of this? That's it's a pretty interesting study, and we can do a second part to this and go more into details about it. But if you have any response or you want to open up for questions, let's do it. Jerome, anybody there?
Yeah. I mean, I can
Yeah,
probably
brother.
take like 1 or 2 questions.
Okay. I'm about to drop the link in the chat. I know for a fact that Just Us said that he wanted to come on, and we'll see whatever other brothers or sisters that do want to hit the link real quick. Jerome Green said that he's open to take at least 1 to 2 questions. If we go beyond that, it will be up to his discretion. But as of right now, based off of everything you've heard, anybody that want to hit the link and have a question for Jerome Green according to the topics that he has presented tonight. We don't want to go off topic. We don't want to talk about stuff that he didn't bring up. According to the topics that Jerome Green mentioned tonight, you can hit the link and jump on the panel, man. Let's get it going. The link is in the chat right now. Let's go. Y'all can continue to talk while, as the brothers and sisters hit the link and come in. Until then, do y'all got something to add on?
Well, yeah, I was just, just looking at it again. Hold on, give me a second.
All right. While we give the brother the GT a second, Jerome Green, I don't know if you can see the chat, but if you can't see the chat, I want to read this from a person named Little Lucifer. So we already know that this person, according to the name, they follow the devil. But he or she said, "Good night, gentlemen. Too much intellectual dishonesty for me." And then he or she put up 3 red flags. Would you want to address that?
I mean, it's nothing. It's really nothing to address because the person made a claim, but didn't actually say what was intellectually dishonest about the discourse. So until they come up, because I saw one comment that was highlighted about how the 10 Commandments were heavily influenced by the 42 laws.
Right.
Well, we already explained that there's no such thing as 42 laws of Ma'at, number one. So
Right.
you're already wrong in how you're trying to contextualize the 42 negative confessions. There's a difference between a confession and which is actually a spell and a so-called law or even a commandment. So what I suggest that person does is they go and actually read. Well, I won't assume, but it almost seems as though that they have not read the book of Coming Forth by Day for themselves. They're probably going off of something they saw on a YouTube video or a meme or something like that. And that's just what it seems like, because if you read the Egyptian Book of the Dead, then you'll know that it's a book of spells to begin with.
Right,
so,
right.
And we're being intellectually dishonest. I'm gonna just say this, but I don't think it's so much that we're being intellectually dishonest. I think it's more so that we're going against something that this individual actually believes.
Right. And Jerome, would you agree or disagree with this? When it comes to those spells and those so-called Book of the Dead, it was individualized. Some people had more in their book. Some people had less in their book. So for them to just specifically point out the 42 laws of Ma'at and compare them to the Ten Commandments, would you feel like that would be dishonesty because you are choosing the so-called 42 laws, which we know that they are negative confessions? You are choosing the 42 negative confessions that were put in the spell book of this specific individual over all the other individuals that had their same book that either had more or less of those same confessions. Would you agree or disagree with that, and why?
I mean, I would agree because number one, what Najiti pointed out earlier is that the Book of the Dead and these spells were actually to be recited by, I think, the more elite, like the Pharaoh, and I think maybe even the Egyptian priests, and not so much the proletariat or the common person. You know what I'm saying? So you have to keep that in perspective too. So it just wasn't for any and everybody. It was for those who were initiated into the Egyptian spiritual tradition and had a stature as either a pharaoh or one of the high priests.
Right. Jerome, you know, when it comes to trust and believe the gospel and the paradigm shift, some of the early videos that we have on both channels were you and I going back and forth with DMG on this same subject. DMG know a lot more about Kemet and their practices than the average person that we see in these chats that we're responding to. Then you have dropped several videos, at least 3 to 4 videos responding to these particular topics. And even brothers like DMG, when he wasn't a Christian, following the Kemetic stuff, he agreed that these failed books, and these so-called negative confessions, they were applied to the elite, the people that had money and the people that could afford them. Once people saw that this stuff wasn't coming true, they opened it up to average people and started charging these people money for them to get their own book written based off of their negative confessions. So you agreeing with me and agreeing with the GD, I would also have to agree with both of y'all that people who come with those certain statements, they obviously haven't looked into or potentially don't have no clue about what these people believe in Egypt. And if I could add on, there are 633 laws in the Bible, not just 10 commandments. There are 633 at that time period that the Old Testament lists. So how do we get uh, the 10 commandments being stolen from 42 negative confessions when there were not just 10 commandments, there were actually 603 commandments, and the 10 commandments are only listed one time in the Bible. So why do people put a big emphasis?
Are you asking Jerome or are you asking me?
I, I was asking Jerome, but you can address that too. Go ahead.
Could you ask the question again? I could vaguely hear
Okay,
you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It's not you. It's just a lot of stuff going on in my background.
Okay, I'll try to speak a little louder for you. How could they think that the 10 commandments came from the 42 negative confessions when the Ten Commandments are a part of the 633 laws in the Bible, not just the 10. So how do we get 42 from the 633 and then the 10 from the 42?
Oh, I don't know how to answer that as far as like how they came up to that conclusion. All I can think of is may have been one of those references from one of those German philosophers that made that up. Because that's the only way that you can come to that conclusion is that one, there were 42 laws. And the crazy part about it is that they don't seem to understand that the 42 the 42 confessions are to 42 different deities, and those 42 different deities were either at the time that it was written or at some point in time in Egypt's history, they were the 42 deities that were over the 42 nomes of Egypt. So it's not like this person is going before God and confessing 42 different of his sins or anything like that. No, or affirmation saying that I have not. But instead, he goes up to one, I have not. Then he goes to the next one, I have not, and then the next one, I have not. That's a lot to do. And then on top of that, again, they can go to the Urban Apologetics and see the show with BK and them, and how they explain that the Ten Commandments was more like a vassal treaty, like between the superior and the subordinate. If you do this, I will do this. If you do this, you will be cursed. If you do this, you will be blessed. It was more of a vassal treaty versus affirmations. So there's no way possible that the 42, again, there is no 42 laws to even mention here, because there weren't. And then looking at the timeline of it all, there wasn't 40. There wasn't a Book of the Dead when Egypt first started. There wasn't a Book of the Dead by the time the 11th, 12th, well, the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th dynasties came in. That's the Middle Kingdom. There was no Book of the Dead. And if I can remember, there was maybe one that they found that dated right at the end of the Middle Kingdom. But the what you said earlier about how the Book of the Dead was individualized, that is true, because what the scribes started to do was mass produce the scrolls, because now they was using scrolls by the New Kingdom. So if you ever looked at the scroll of, the Book of the Dead with all the spells, you will see places where the ink is black. But when you get to the part where it's red, originally that red part was left blank, because it's just like like you got a document and it's just like it has everything that's pre-written in there, but all you would have to do is add the needed information, like your name, your date, just religion, all of that. So when you're looking at a scroll that's dated,
I think I'm lagging behind you, but if I can add to what you said just real quick, you're right. Them coming up with the Book of the Dead and the 42 negative confessions or laws of Mayat, they're basing that based off of one person's spell book. We have several people's spell books from that particular time, and some have less. There are some people's books that just have 3 spells, or 3 negative confessions, or 3 laws, if you want to call it that. This one particular book that they like to hype up is only from that in particular from that particular person. And either the majority of people who follow that don't know that, or either they do know it and they being dishonest. There was no particular set of laws for every single individual when it comes to these laws, to where every person was going in front of whoever their God was saying that I have not done this or I have not done that. But for some reason, they take the 42 negative confessions of Bayat and like to place that on every single person that was in Egypt, when for a fact that wasn't the case.
Right, it wasn't.
But
And
I think that, and it don't look like any of the brothers want any, I mean, brothers or sisters want any smoke with what has been said tonight. So, Nijiti, go finish making your point, and after you make your point, and I guess we'll get ready to close out if that's what y'all want to do.
okay, yeah, my family about to eat. Um, but in any case, like again, based off of Jerome's personal testimony about coming out of the Black conscious community, like I don't see anything wrong with trying to, you know what I'm saying, trying to discover our roots, especially as Black people, and especially with all the things that we've gone through as, you know what I'm saying, as Black people. I see nothing wrong with that. But when we hear things like our faith is Eurocentric, when in fact, you know, it was in Israel first, and then it hit Africa before uh, it hit Africa way before it hit Europe. So we know that's not true. Um, but then, you know what I'm saying, when the claims come in that we believe in a religion or a faith that stole things from ancient Kemet, and then come to find out that no, that's not the case either, because their concept of ancient Egypt is based off of German philosophers, and they do not reflect the true nature of Egyptian religion, because they were wrapped up in occult practices and Luciferianism. So, is it safe to say that anyone who wants to follow the Black conscious community and the doctrines that they read, are they then unknowingly Luciferians? I don't know. It could be, but I don't know. But then we see within our culture, a lot of our young Black men, especially the rappers, for some reason, you know, they going hard for Satan. They on demon time and all this other stuff. Um, but I think on my part, that's pretty much it. What I did want to touch on, but I know I don't have time, was the concept of what the Egyptians were really worried about in the Book of the Dead, or in the pyramid text, the coffin text, and the Book of the Dead, is that they were really wanting to get back to a place called the Field of Reeds. And so the next time we do this discussion, that's what I want to focus on, the Field of Reeds, because the Field of Reeds gives us an indication of the origins of dynastic Egypt. Because although for them, the Field of Reeds was considered a celestial place where the gods and the dead resided, you know what I'm saying, the spirits of the dead resided, and they were able to, you know, enjoy the lush fields. But come to find out, the Field of Reeds is actually a real physical geographical place, and it gives us all the clues we need in regards to where dynastic Egypt came from. And so I'll drop it on that, bro. Yeah, nobody. If I see Jerome dropped off, so if you got anything, you go ahead and close it out.
Oh, okay. maybe StreamYard kick Jerome off like they did last time. I want to try to give him a few seconds to come back in so that we can get closing words. If he don't come back in within the next few minutes, then we'll just go ahead and close out. But I do think that he's probably going to come right back. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat, man. We appreciate everybody who stuck around with what's going on the show tonight, man. As you can see, all three of us brothers, we are passionate about the Bible. We're passionate about our belief. We're passionate about Jesus Christ, man. And we're not here to be dishonest. We're not here to try to force anybody to believe anything that isn't true. All that we're asking that the people who listen to this show tonight, when you come with your disagreements about the Bible, you're not just dealing with people who have been what you would claim to be a Christian their whole lives. You're dealing with people who were seeking, like the Bible told us to do, who were searching, like the Bible told us to do. And at the end of the day, some of us have walked away from the Bible, but still seeking the truth, and it led us right back to the Bible. So I genuinely believe that people who are seeking the truth, as the Bible tells you, go seek, go find, go knock on the doors, go seek, go find all that. If you're being honest with yourself, um, in my opinion, man, it's going to lead you right back to who the one true God is. The only way that you're not going to get led back to the one true God is if you're not being honest with yourself. You don't have to be honest with me. You don't have to be honest with Najidi. You don't have to be honest with Jerome. But if you're honest with yourself and if you're actually seeking and you're trying to find out who God is, I don't think in no way, shape, or form, I don't have any doubt that it's going to lead you back to the one true Savior, which is Jesus Christ, man. You got it? I don't see Jerome coming back right now, bro. Do you got anything else to add before we close out?
Nope. Just shout out to the one. Shout out to Paradigm Shift. All our friends, family, all of them. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Well, man, y'all know me. I go by the name of Nobody. I always trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody. That has been my brother Nikiti, the most well-kept brother that we got on Paradigm Shift TV 314. That has been my brother Jerome Green, telling y'all about his experiences from uh, self-proclaiming to be a Christian, but actually not, leaving the Bible, going into the conscious community, and coming right back to the Bible once he was able to weigh all of these different questions and stands and statements against what the truth is, man. And we appreciate y'all for tuning in. We appreciate y'all for coming, and we hope to catch y'all in the next one. This has been Paradigm Shift TV 314. We'll catch y'all next time, man. Let's peace.